In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I took a sales team from $200,000 per month to just under $1 million per month in just 5 months. I'm going to break down the 6 core components that you should be thinking about and the lens through which you should be viewing your sales team, whether you're a business owner yourself, a sales manager, running a sales team, building a sales team. I'm going to break down exactly how I did it. And if you don't know who I am, my name's Adam Taylor, and I run a completely done-for-you sales agency through Nomadic Closer. And we specialize in taking companies from $200,000 per month to $1 million per month, so that the business owner has absolutely nothing to do with the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of the day-to-day sales gig and the sales game, which we absolutely love. I'm going to run you through a core concept through which you should be thinking about your sales team, and which really, once I learned this, completely systemized the way I was thinking about sales management and took it very much away from sales management is just running team meetings, watching call recordings, looking at KPIs and firing people. The way you should be looking at it is exactly the same way as a business should be looking at acquiring and ascending clients. It is the exact same process. So here's the kicker. Step number 1 is you should have a system to be continuously recruiting. Now, recruiting gets bundled together and the term gets confused with recruiting, hiring, and onboarding. Those are 3 separate steps in the process. We're going to break down each one individually. If you think about this section here, if you were to be looking at this as a business, recruiting is essentially your marketing broken down into lead gen and lead nurture. Okay. When we're recruiting, we should be generating leads and nurturing leads constantly and consistently. I'm going to break that down for you. Then, if we think about the next step in marketing, the next step in marketing is sales. Hiring is simply the act of converting somebody from outside of the company to being a member of the company. Just the same way as sales converts leads who are not customers to paying customers. And then once we've sold someone, we want a very carefully orchestrated onboarding process to wow that customer and that client, to make that experience unforgettable and get them excited about being a part of your company and get them also to refer all their friends, right? And so exactly the same way as we should be thinking about this as a business, you should be thinking about this as a sales manager. So onboarded this rep, what needs to happen then? Do we just throw them on the calendar? Here are your logins to the CRM and best of luck to you? No, there should be a ramp up process, after which there should be an ascension, or let's call this, I'm going to call this growth plan. I'll explain why in a second. And the last thing that should be systemized and orchestrated is in fact your offboarding. Exactly the same way as a business, after they've onboarded a customer, they should also, and we can obviously bundle these two into what we would call ascension, the goal of which to be increasing LTV, lifetime value. This phase is doing the exact same thing. The only difference is obviously a company hopes to never have to offboard a client. But of course, there are some companies that do this incredibly well. Amazon, if you've noticed, now have an option where if you cancel a subscription, they give you new options. They give you a discounted option, a shorter time frame. They give you the option to freeze the account and start again after 1, 2, or 3 months. So they actually have an orchestrated offboarding, or let's maybe as a company call this a cancellation process. This is the exact same thing that you should have systemized in every step of the way of bringing a rep on from a complete stranger all the way to no longer being part of the company. Let's break these down. Recruiting, very briefly and high level. You should always, 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 always be recruiting. Even if you have no immediate need for a rep, you should always be gathering leads and nurturing leads. You should be constantly bringing people into your ecosystem by presenting your offer in a way that attracts and entices people to want to be a closer or a setter on your team. If people don't want to be a part of it and they don't know about your offer, it's going to be incredibly hard when all of a sudden something happens and somebody leaves the team of their own accord. And now all of a sudden you're in this phase of necessity. Now I need to find someone quickly to stop the gap and to bring revenue back up, because obviously if a rep leaves, Now, those are sales that are being missed, and we can argue and hypothesize that those leads that that guy was closing could be spread across the other closers, but if their calendars are completely packed, you are going to take a hit. So I'm going to share one more concept with you, and this is going to really help you to structure and systemize the way you think about every single one of these steps. Each and every one of these, your recruitment, hiring, onboarding, ramp up, growth, and offboarding phases should all be broken down into 3 things. If you are to master these 3 things and have a complete system, each and every one, you are going to be winning, and you're going to be bringing teams from $200 to $1 million a month. The first thing is, what systems do we use for this piece of the puzzle? What are the processes in place to perform the actions needed with these systems for this piece of the puzzle? And who are the people involved? And so for the example of recruiting, now with systems, of course, this could depend. So if we think about systems, obviously we think about tech very, very quickly. Which CRM do we use? Which software do we use? Is it Slack, Close, Go High Level, Airtable, Monday, whatever it might be? In the case of recruiting, I would be thinking of systems in terms of what sources of leads do we have? Do we have a company website where we can create an evergreen funnel that is constantly attracting applications? Do we have a social media pages? Do you, as the business owner or the sales manager, have personal pages you can leverage? Frankly, this phase from $200,000 to $1 million per month, all of the reps that we hired to grow in that phase all came from my personal network exclusively. And that's just because I've spent time building a network, and I've been very, very fortunate to be exposed to a lot of closers and a lot of reps at a very, very high level that I can call on and obviously want to work with me. What else? Do we have recruiters that we can tap into? Okay. And this may seem like people, but obviously if it's a company, there should be a system in place to be able to do that. Then the processes, now these are your SOPs. That's it. So if we know that we use the website, we have a VSL in place, what is the SOP? If this, and this can be broken down further, okay? So if the website VSL application then goes into an Asana board, let's say the application gets sent straight into an Asana board, what is the SOP? Is that on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis that those are reviewed? Once reviewed, there's an email that goes out, yes or no. There's an invite to a second step. Or do we first request video intro? And I'll be doing a separate video to break this down, or you tell me. If you like, comment below and I'll record a separate video to this to make sure that I break this down in full and in detail as to the systems, processes, and people that we use to recruit and hire this many reps to be able to get to $1 million per month. And then who are the people involved? Is there an assistant? Is there the sales manager? Is the business owner involved? These are the things that you need to have mapped out and systemized for each and every step of this process here. And so recruiting, number 1, always be recruiting, have systems, processes, and people in place for them. When hiring, you need a system, process, and know exactly who the people are who are involved. Many ways to go about this. If you like, comment below and I'll break down a video exactly how we did it. But essentially, you want to know, how do we convert these leads into reps as and when we need them? A few things here. Core values is going to be a big one. General energy, meaning culture fit, which will come from making these decisions through the lens of your core values. And then finally, and this is the last thing that I look at, is skill set, onboarding. Now, this is the piece that I see fail over and over again in teams that I've consulted for and consulted with, or even been on myself, is that the onboarding process is a Google Docs with a script and a presentation slide deck and logins and passwords to the CRM. And that's it. That is not an onboarding. If you were to think about that as a business, what would that look like? How can we orchestrate this process so those first 48 to 72 hours are such a phenomenal experience where the person feels completely involved, educated, informed, welcomed, understands, has absolute certainty as to what is happening, when and why, and expectations are set, which is obviously a huge part of the hiring process as well, that they cannot wait to get on the phones. So this needs to be orchestrated, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. As long as you map out your systems, the process that you use, and the people that need to be involved, you will see very, very clearly how these pieces of the puzzle fit together to make a phenomenal experience. It doesn't have to be complicated. Call me old fashioned, but I've just used in Google Docs. That's all I've done in the past. It's the closest thing that I can use to creating a website. I can make a heading, a subtitle. I can add videos. I can add images. I can have graphics, pictures, links. It's the closest thing that I, like me at 36 years of age, can use to create like a website, essentially. Doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be overcomplicated. When ramping, this is also the act of the first few calls. We tested different ramp up phases from between 2 to 6 weeks, and we found 4-week ramp up period to be optimal. But what does that gradual progression look like? So that the rep is not feeling overwhelmed and overloaded and overbeared, but is getting gradual adaptation to the load of the workload and workflow of the company. What do I mean by that? It's basically bringing someone from a empty barbell bench press to 100 kilos. You would not ask anybody to make that jump on the first day. You would do it in a gradual, progressive manner so that you're always experiencing wins, always experiencing small victories along the way. Now, this is the cool part. I'm going to call this the growth phase, because after ramping, once we've got somebody to the KPIs that we expect, what happens is a lot of reps just get left to their own devices. They just get wished the best of luck to them. They're expected to turn up to the meetings, expected to perform with literally little to no input into them. Now, there'll be the argument in the comments, hopefully, about A players don't need any more input. You just got to leave them alone and let them do their thing. It's not true. It is not true. What the A player needs versus the B plus player will be different needs. The B plus player may need some extra input in terms of sales training, core reviews. The A player, if they're a true A player, will welcome feedback. They will also want core reviews, but they may not need so much of that. They may need more of the personal touch. They may need one-on-ones where you're just checking in with them and seeing how they're doing, building a relationship with them, getting to know them, making them feel a part of your company. Once people feel a connection and part of a tribe, they will stay and they will want to put in, they will want to do the work. They will want to get results for the team, for the clients, for the leaderboard, for themselves. They will put in the work. You just have to figure out what is it that my reps on an individual and on a team level need to make sure that they are staying long with the company, that they are growing, that they're improving, that their stats are going up, and they're making the money that they want to be making. Again, systems, processes, people on an individual and a team level. Individual is obviously your planned. And again, comment below if you want an in-depth video into this piece, and I'll break down exactly everything we did, planned and unplanned touch points. And on a team basis, this is your team challenges, your team meetings, making sure that they're productive, that people actually want to turn up to a team meeting. This, remember, if we compare it to a business, is your ascension program. This is how do we increase the lifetime value of this customer, in this case, rep. In the beginning, when they're ramping up and they're only taking 2 calls a day, their value to the company is small. Then once they get onto a full calendar and they're at KPI, their value increases. And so now the challenge is, how do I, over the longest possible time horizon, induce the most amount of growth and increase the value of this rep so that they are closing more deals, they're bringing more energy, they're referring closers in their network to the company, they may be referring friends and family as customers into the company. How do I increase the value of this rep? Systemize it. Don't just let it up to chance and say A players don't need it. It's a fallacy. It doesn't work. It's not true. And so the last piece of this is then how to orchestrate offboarding. Now, what I mean by this is not just the systems people process to make sure that, somebody is out of the system, passwords, et cetera. What I mean by this is, what expectations have I set as to what level of performance is expected from you to stay on the team or for you to go? When do we have what conversation, at what numbers, and what time period do we give that person to make the correction? Every single rep that you have to cut from the team turns up to that meeting knowing exactly what's going to come out of your mouth before it comes out of your mouth. If you're hopping on a call and you're cutting a rep and they're saying, really? And they're surprised, you're doing it wrong and you're damaging your reputation, because they're going to have nothing good to say about you to the whole network. And you're essentially eroding trust in the rest of the team. Because now the team is sitting there thinking, holy shit, I hope that doesn't happen to me. I don't hop onto the call with this guy and he's going to cut me. I don't know when it's going to happen. It has to be predictable. It has to be systemized, and it has to be communicated upfront. Once you do that, what you'll be able to do is implement something called strategic churn, where you on a regular basis are cutting the bottom 10% of your team. If you cut the bottom 10% and replace them with new reps, you are going to by default grow the performance of the team. Here's the kicker, here's the caveat. You cannot do this if you do not have this. You can't. You cannot cut the bottom 10% if you do not have a pipeline of closers to call upon as and when you need them. If you cut the bottom 10%, then I think, where am I going to find the next closer? I hope I find a good one. You're not going to implement strategic churn out of necessity and scarcity. And that is a downward spiral of death. So essentially, think of your team as a business. It is a business. If you are performance-based, commission only, maybe you have a base, maybe you don't. But if your income depends on the performance of your sales team, treat it as a business and make sure that you have each of those touch points in place, each of those stages of the pipeline in place, and make sure that you are thinking about the systems, process, and people behind each and every one. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment below if you'd like me to make an individual video breaking down each segment of this video to make sure I give you everything that I know about growing teams from $200,000 per month to $1 million per month so that you can go and create phenomenal environments for your team, for your closers, for your network, and make sure that you are actually making a difference in sales, not just for yourself, everyone around you. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of these.